As expected, Russia has vetoed the United Nations Security Council resolution on its invasion of Ukraine. Will Putin get away with his audacious act of war? I'm Barkhadat, you're with the Mojo Story. Let's take you through the developments on this big global crisis at this hour. India and China have abstained at the United Nations Security Council vote. At the United Nations, a vote that, as expected, Russia has vetoed. Now, what happens next? Can the United Nations General Assembly still override what the Security Council has done? What do we make of China's intriguing abstention, one that still calls for Moscow's quote-unquote security concerns to be respected? Ukraine's leadership is promising that it will not run away. It will not do basically what Afghanistan's regime did when the Taliban came marching in. But is there any realistic chance without military support from the West of stopping Putin's audacious act of war? Let's go across to Ukrainian diplomat. We are joined by Ambassador Olexander Scherba, who is Ukraine's ambassador to Austria. Thank you very much for joining us and making time at this difficult hour for you and your country. Before I get your responses, I would just like to play out for our audience a very powerful video that was released late at night amid reports that Kyiv would be taken over by the Russians, by the leadership of Ukraine. And we'll come to you right after that. Listen.
Всім добрий вечір. Лідер фракції тут, голова Офісу президента тут, прем'єр-міністр Шмигаль тут, Подоляк тут, президент тут. Всі ми тут, наші військові тут, громадяни суспільства тут, всі ми тут. Захищаємо нашу незалежність, нашу державу. І так буде й далі. Слава нашим захисникам, слава нашим захисницям. Слава Україні!
Слава Слава!
So a stirring display of brave resistance there, but what will happen in the end? Can it change the outcome? Ambassador, are you hopeful at all at this point, or are you feeling like the inevitable will happen soon, especially given Russia exercising its veto power as expected?
I'm extremely hopeful after this night. It feels like, the end of a vampire movie when sun rises up and you can hear birds chirp. And I see that it's the spirit of unity in Ukraine is amazing. I mean, East, West, Russian speaking, Ukrainian speaking, people who were enemies just a week ago now stood up and fighting and defending the country. It's amazing what you see in Ukraine. It's amazing how simple people just take weapons in their hands and go to war.
But you just said you feel like it's the end of a vampire movie, but the movie hasn't ended. The worst part may yet be coming.
Yeah, it's probably the end of an episode, I understand. But, last night I was going to bed and I was asking myself what will happen tomorrow. And then, of course, my tomorrow began at 12 o'clock at night. I just spent a couple of hours sleeping. And I heard all this shooting in my neighborhood. I read all this news. I saw all these videos. And I spoke to my friends on the phone. And my God, we are so resilient right now. And Putin's soldiers, Putin may be deranged, but his soldiers aren't. And they know that they are not welcome here. They were thinking that they would be welcome here because they are fighting people who in many cases speak the same language, have relatives in Russia, and it's a confusing situation for them. We are resilient, they are not.
Let's pick up the sentence that you just said. Putin may be deranged, but his soldiers are not. The soldiers, of course, have to follow Putin's orders. The soldiers have to do what Putin has tasked him to do. What are you hoping at this point with the West refusing to put boots on the ground unless NATO countries are actually impacted directly? How are you hoping that with all the resilience and bravery of the Ukrainian people, they will be able to put up a resistance to Moscow's troops?
Listen, it's the third day of the war. Not a single big city in Ukraine was taken. We have in the unoccupied area, we have how many? 21 big cities. Not a single one was occupied. People are fighting, being tough. People are giving the invaders hell. This is our plan. We just fight, like Churchill said. We fight them on ground. We fight them on the beaches. We fight them on the sea. That's our plan. As simple as that. That's our country and our freedom.
And it's clear that Ukraine has decided to go down fighting, but are you hopeful that Ukraine may not have to go down? There is an asymmetry of military power here, right? And I'm wondering how you are hoping to get past that. I'm wondering if Ukraine is feeling isolated. Of course, people have supported you, including in Moscow. And what was very stirring was Ukraine's leadership addressing directly the people of Russia. Talk a little bit about that.
How can a country go down if it's a monolith? Ukraine is monolith for the first time in many, many years. I mean, what will he do? Even if for a minute, for a week, he takes over, what will he do with these people? They hated him before. They hate him even more now. He will be on a more hostile ground than Soviet Union was in Afghanistan. He will lose Ukraine no matter what, and he has already lost. He has already lost the battle for hearts of Ukrainians. He has lost the battle of heart in the world, and he is about to lose the battle of heart for Russians, because I believe that Russians in the end will hear us. They will understand, because we come from in many cases the same history. Russians remember how the people defended Moscow in 1941, including Ukrainians, and everybody was saying Moscow was falling. But in the end, it was the beginning of the end for Hitler. And now we have that moment in Ukraine. We will defend Kyiv. And when we defend Kyiv, it will, I see already, I mean, come on, it's a breaking moment, I think. We should survive this weekend. And from there on, it will be, how do you say it in English, down the hill for Putin.
You know, but the problem, of course, is that Putin doesn't care about the battle for hearts. He's obviously a tyrant. Tyrants don't care about the hearts and minds of people. They simply care about brute force. That is actually what Vladimir Putin is doing here. He is flexing his muscle. He's displaying brute force. He has calculated that with the Americans declining to send men and women in to fight for Ukraine, he can win this militarily. He doesn't care about the hearts of the Ukrainian people. So what do you do with a person like that?
I disagree. He doesn't care about the hearts of the people in India, in Europe, in America. He couldn't care less about that. But the hearts of Ukrainians and the hearts of Russians, that's very important to him. He miscalculated. He thought he was desperate yesterday. I mean, he didn't sound desperate, but I think he was. He directly spoke to Ukrainian people. Go overthrow your corrupt and ridiculous government. Go overthrow them. Take power. And just this shows that A, it's important for them what Ukrainians do, and B, he completely misread Ukrainian soul once again. And it's so ridiculous and it's so strange that people who come from the same historical background, who have relatives, who in many cases speak the same language, but Russia misreads Ukraine over and over again. And you know why? Because of imperial hubris. They look at us Ukrainians as the same, but more stupid, peasants, unworthy, you know. And he will be total assent this time.
Let me ask you this. What did you make of what happened at the UN? I'm sure Ukraine is disappointed with India, but what did you make? And India has its own reasons. India is walking a tightrope here, trying to engage with both sides, calling for de-escalation. So, every country is basically out for their own national self-interest, which is how diplomacy is. But what did you make of China's abstention? Very intriguing.
For these couple of days, I'm not a diplomat. I'm just a human being. And this choice that countries are making, it's a choice between invaders and defenders. It's the choice between good and evil. The line between good and evil was never clearer as at this particular moment. So I'm a little bit surprised about India's position. Please understand, you are not choosing between America's position and Russia's position. You are not being diplomatic here. You are a little bit selling your soul, because it's about good and evil at this particular point. We love you. I have many friends in India. Hi, Ambika, if you're watching me. But I think there is a point. There is a possibility to change this position. If not, if you are not strong enough, it won't change a thing. We will be fighting till the end.
I know I hear you, and there's a big debate in India on whether India needs to take a principled position or whether India needs to be pragmatic. You, of course, speak as a Ukrainian and a human being, as you said today, and feel like India is in danger of selling its soul. And I can tell you that this is a big debate in our country, but a lot of people feel that diplomacy is complex and it is about coming from a position of national self-interest. Talk a little bit about China. Indians, as Indians, we continue to debate what we should do. Talk about what you made of the Chinese position.
Well, it's politicians in the world are making a mistake putting Russia and China together. There is a big, profound difference between China and Russia. And the difference is China is already a success. Russia is a failure. Russia is not a success. So Russia is like a marathon runner who is behind many laps. So he's trying to break legs of the other people who are running. And just stop the run, and it would be like there would be a new chance for them. And China is a success. China wants to change the world. Maybe it wants to have more influence in the world. But it's not Russia who wants economic, and maybe not only economic, global ground zero.
Mm-hmm. You say that therefore the Russia-China axis is not the natural axis that many people feared it could be, including many concerns in India, because from an Indian perspective, we saw Imran Khan sitting in Russia, the Pakistani leader, calling it an exciting time. That's what the video showed him saying as he landed in Moscow. So, like I said, I think for India, as one diplomat described it, it's a set of cruel dilemmas. That's how one veteran Indian diplomat described India's Hobson's choice in this matter. But Ambassador, let me ask you, Chinese statement also talks about respecting Moscow's security concerns. There's some sense that NATO's sort of expansionist noises is something that upset Putin, and that if this is to de-escalate, then those concerns would have to be addressed. Is Ukraine ready for that? Might that be the contours of a solution even at this late hour?
Well, all these years, Russia was talking that NATO is a threat and it shouldn't expand. And NATO was saying NATO is expanding not because it wants to threaten Russia, because Russia's neighbors are threatened by Russia. And this is the moment of truth. Now, who attacked whom? NATO, Russia, or Russia? It's innocent, democratic neighbor, a neighbor who didn't want to join NATO in 2014 when Crimea was annexed. It was 14% public support for this in Ukraine back then. Now it's over 60%, and no Ukrainian politician ever would try to sell this idea of Ukraine's neutrality right now to this nation. We are under attack, and we are not selling our freedom.
Mm-hmm. What do you see then is the space for dialogue? The Russians say they're ready to talk, provided Ukraine does not militarily resist its troops.
Well, Russia is not ready to talk. Russia keeps insulting Ukraine. Russia says, we are ready to talk if you disarm, if you change your government, and what else? And if we eliminate all the people in Ukraine that we don't like, we call them Nazis, denazification. That's not a start of the dialogue. That's a suggestion of capitulation, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
If Kiev falls, and I know you're hopeful that this is the end of an episode of vampire movies, but if Kiev militarily falls and Putin gets his way, what are the consequences for the world that the world needs to understand?
Well, Putin is a monster. Everybody sees that. This monster would be invigorated, more powerful. It would be he would feel unstoppable. What do you do when you are faced with an unstoppable, cynical, bloodthirsty monster? I mean, I just don't want to make any predictions. That's why Ukraine's fight for her freedom, for her independence, is so important right now. If Putin comes up with anything less than just stopping insulting Ukraine and seeing us as equals, maybe, but in this insulting speech on Monday, he 40 minutes long was slapping us in the face, saying how inferior we are, how unworthy we are of our own state. He miscalculated, he misread us. He thought we would agree with him and kiss his hand like many Russians do. Now he's actually getting what he deserved with his words and with his attitude towards Ukraine.
Bloodthirsty, cynical monster is how you describe Vladimir Putin. I must ask you in the end, what are you hoping will happen in the next, let's say, 72 hours? Are you expecting the United Nations General Assembly to override what the Security Council has done or been unable to do?
We hope that the NATO grows guts and heart and conscience finally and imposes no-fly zone over Ukraine. That's very important. Second of all, I hope that the nations of the world grow hard and with all power, with all clarity, say that Putin has to stop, also via the United Nations venue. That's extremely important. That's a moment that will define who we are in the next couple of decades. It's a historic moment.
Yeah. Finally, do you feel alone? Do you feel Ukraine, your country, has been left alone by the world?
Oh God, I spent the whole night tweeting, and just the support that's coming from all over the place.
From people, yes. From people, yes. But what about nation states?
Nations are people, states are people. I mean, if people are in favor of Ukraine and they see this movement mounting, then the presidents will become braver. And I hope this will happen.
Are you struck by the fact, sorry, just a last question, are you struck by the fact that so many Russian legends are actually speaking out? We're seeing sporting stars, for example, stand up and say no to war.
Yeah, actually, I'm a Russian-speaking Ukrainian. Half of my iCloud in my iPhone is, and it's a big one, it's Russian music. I mean, I haven't been in Russia for a very, very, very long time, but I love Russian culture, and Russian language is one of my two mother tongues. And I was waiting for these people who we love, who we respect, finally coming forward and saying what they feel. And finally, it's happening.
Yeah, well, I think you're still hopeful that people will prevail over Putin, and may you be right. But as you said, it's a critical inflection point in history, and there are consequences for the entire world, because if Putin does get his way, this could indeed lead to a new world order. It's a very dangerous time. Ambassador, thank you for your time at this moment of crisis for your country, and we'll reconnect with you as we keep a close eye on these developments. Thank you for talking to us. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Barker.
Goodbye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.